It all started with a message from Emily Carter, the national sweetheart, Grammy-winning pop queen, the girl every guy in America had dreamed about at least once, and she sent it to me, a broke-ass graphic designer living off gas station coffee and freelance gigs. The message was simple, casual, even, like we'd been talking yesterday. James, can I borrow some money? She even had the audacity to include her bank details and end it with, thanks, like this was totally normal. I stared at my phone for a good 2 minutes trying to process it. Emily freaking Carter. My high school crush. The girl who sat in the last row while I was stuck in the first. We barely spoke back then except for homework handoffs, and now she wanted to borrow money from me. My first thought was, is she broke? Like actually broke? Did she get blacklisted? Or maybe she fell into some scam herself. The entertainment industry's brutal, maybe she lost everything. And yeah, maybe I was a little stupid, maybe I still had a soft spot for her after all these years, but before I could overthink it, I transferred every penny I had, exactly $4,570.22, down to the cents. My bank account dropped to zero in under 10 seconds. 10 seconds to go from pathetic to bankrupt. What the hell was I doing? I waited for her to call back, to explain, to say it was serious, maybe even thank me. Instead, my phone rang and some automated voice from the anti-fraud center came on, telling me I'd just been used in a nationwide scam awareness broadcast. To prevent fraud, remember the 3 no's and 1 more, it droned. I was frozen, confused, and absolutely humiliated. Then came her voice, familiar but distant, from the other end of the line. James, how are you still this stupid after all these years? My heart stopped. Emily's voice was soft, teasing, but also kind of sad. I couldn't speak. My face burned like hell. You just sent me all your money, she chuckled. Your girlfriend won't mind, will she? I don't have one, I muttered. Then give it back, I added weakly. I'm filming. I'll call you later, she said, her tone suddenly gentle. And hey, remember to download the anti-fraud app. The call ended. I sat there like an idiot, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. And then a transfer notification popped up. Emily Carter had just wired me $800,000. I blinked. Rubbed my eyes. Blinked again. Nope, still there. $800,000. My whole life's worth of earnings in one line of numbers. I pinched my arm. It hurt. I wasn't dreaming. I opened the details. Yup, $800K straight from Emily Carter. Was this a joke? Some weird PR stunt? That's when I remembered something from high school. Summer before graduation, Emily told me she was going to audition for a talent show in Newport City. She asked me to lend her money for the bus ticket. I gave her $80. She laughed and said, when I become famous, I'll pay you back $800,000. I laughed too. Of course I did. It sounded like a joke. But apparently, she wasn't joking. I sat there holding my phone like it was a holy artifact. I couldn't keep this money, could I? I decided I'd deduct the $4,500 I gave her earlier, then return the rest. I typed in her bank details, hit send, and it bounced. Transfer rejected. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what to do. I called Nathan, my best friend, and told him everything. He didn't even let me finish. You're the fool, he shouted. The fool on her contact list. Apparently, I'd gone viral on Weibo. There was a hashtag, Emily Carter anti-fraud fool. I clicked into the trending topic and found the replay of the segment. The producers had told the guests to pick someone in their contacts to text for money, to simulate a scam. Emily had sent her message to the first contact in her phone labeled, a fool. That was me. And I actually wired her everything I had. Everyone on set laughed. The hosts joked I must be in love. Some guests said I was the biggest simp in the world. Some even called me a national treasure of dumb. But Emily didn't laugh. Her eyes turned red, and she whispered, "After all these years, how are you still so stupid?" I sat there stunned. Yeah, I was a clown, but I was her clown. I scrolled through the comments. "Who's James Walker? He's the top contact in Emily's phone. This note is so special, a fool, but with affection. Dude must have liked her back in the day. Only love makes your IQ drop this low." I couldn't breathe. The past came rushing back. The desk stacked with love letters, none of them mine. The one time I dared to talk to her outside of math class. The time she forgot her test paper and got punished by Ms. Harper, our math teacher, who was straight up terrifying. I followed her outside and stood beside her just so she wouldn't cry alone. I even gave her chocolate. I'd forgotten about all that. I thought we were just classmates. Maybe she thought otherwise. Maybe we had a thing and neither of us said anything. But now she was this shining star, and I was a nobody with an empty bank account and a viral nickname. I texted Nathan, "So what do I do now?" He called me instantly. "Throw your resignation letter in your bald boss's face, you idiot. You're rich." "I can't accept the money," I said. "It doesn't feel right. Are you dumb in both love and finance?" "Dude, if I had that much, I'd be sipping champagne with my feet in a hot tub." Just then, my phone buzzed again. It was Emily. She texted, "James, free after work today? Let's talk." She sent an address. A fancy private restaurant. I stared at it. My heart was pounding like I was about to meet a long-lost lover, which, maybe I was. I agreed. After all, I had to return the money somehow. What I didn't know was that this dinner would be the beginning of something way bigger than an accidental viral moment. This was the start of my real story with Emily Carter. The Emily Carter, and things were about to get way more complicated than I ever imagined. The whole day felt like a fever dream, and by the time I got off work, I'd already rehearsed a dozen ways to return the money and walk away like a gentleman, but who was I kidding? I was fidgeting like a high schooler on prom night. The address she sent me was a high-end private restaurant downtown, the kind you only see influencers review on TikTok or rich kids post about on their birthdays. I took one look at my wrinkled work shirt, tried smoothing it with my hands, then gave up and walked in anyway. The waiter led me to a secluded table in the back where Emily Carter, yes, that Emily Carter, was sitting alone, scrolling through her phone like she wasn't the reason my bank account had seen both zero and millionaire status within 24 hours. She looked up as I approached, and for a second, it felt like time rewound to high school. "You've changed a lot," she said, smiling, eyes scanning my face like she was memorizing it. "You've become more beautiful too," I replied before I could stop myself, then immediately wanted to punch myself in the throat. "No girlfriend?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nope," I answered awkwardly. "What about you?" "Same," she said with a playful shrug. Silence fell between us like an awkward third wheel until the waiter came and saved the mood by bringing out our food, steak for me, salad for her. "That's all you're eating?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She gave me a guilty look. "Can't eat too much at dinner. You gain weight, and the camera adds 10 pounds. You're already thin," I blurted out, then immediately regretted it. "I mean a healthy. Like, your body's totally fine." "Wait, that came out wrong," she laughed, reached across the table with her fork, and pointed at my plate. "Cut me a piece." My fork froze midair. Was this really happening? I awkwardly sliced off a piece and handed it to her. She took it with my fork and ate it like we'd done this 100 times. "Aren't you gonna order more?" she teased. "Or did giving me all your money make you poor?" "I'm trying to give it back," I said. "Tried transferring it yesterday. Your account rejected it." She stabbed her salad with unnecessary force. "Because I blocked all incoming transfers. That money wasn't meant to be returned. But it was a joke. That 5.2 million. You seriously remembered that?" "Of course I did," she said, her eyes narrowing. You were my first investor. My angel investor. Emily, it's not like that. I just wanted to help. And I want you to keep it, she said firmly, her tone daring me to argue. I opened my mouth, closed it, then gave up. What do you even do now? She asked suddenly. Graphic design. Mostly freelance. Cool, she nodded. I'm a singer, she added with a grin. I laughed awkwardly, scraping at my steak with my fork. Got 5 insurances and a housing fund, she asked, half serious. What? I blinked. No, freelancers don't really get that stuff. She grinned. Neither do I. No insurance, no weekends, no overtime pay. Showbiz sucks. I couldn't help but chuckle. You don't seem to be struggling. Money doesn't fix exhaustion, she said. And being pretty isn't a health plan. You're very pretty, I mumbled. You always were. She smirked. Then why didn't you ever tell me back then? Because I was a socially awkward teenager with acne who thought you were way out of my league. Good reason, she said, still smiling. So, why don't you come to my concerts? Tickets are expensive, I admitted. And always sold out. She stared at me for a moment. Next one's on me. VIP seat. But you have to sign something for me in return. What? I asked, confused. She took out a photo and handed me a pen. Sign it. To my dearest brother Nathan, may you become more handsome. I froze. He made you say that? He begged. I signed it, blushing the whole time. She laughed again. So, who's your celebrity crush? I scratched my head. Sophie White, maybe. My fake BFF, she said, mock offended. The one who called me her ride or die while throwing shade behind my back. You two aren't friends. Please, she rolled her eyes. We shared a stylist once. That's it. So no autograph? I joked. Only if you say, I love you, first. What? Kidding, she smirked. Maybe. We both laughed, but underneath the surface, my brain was overheating. Was this a date? A friendly catch-up? Some kind of karma-fueled fan service? I couldn't tell. After dinner, she brought up the money again. I told her it felt wrong to keep it. Then let me keep it for you, she offered casually. I'll put it in a high-interest account. Wait, do I have to add you on WeChat for that? Of course. I'd never added a celebrity before. Her profile pic was a bunny in sunglasses. That's you. Don't judge my aesthetic, she said. Anyway, I'll send you updates every month. Financial reports included. Great. Now I've got a celebrity accountant. The hottest one, she winked. The next day, I got a message from her asking for help editing some photos. I said yes before even seeing them. When they came through, my jaw dropped. Bikini shots. Boudoir angles. A loose shirt barely buttoned, her eyes fierce but soft. My coworker glanced over and yelled, "Bro, is that Emily Carter?" I slammed the laptop shut and ran to the bathroom to splash water on my face. My heart wouldn't slow down. I texted her back, "These are fine. Just need lighting tweaks." "Thanks," she replied. "By the way, I dropped off 2 barrels of soybean oil at your place." "Soybean what?" "Payment for services." "Don't be ungrateful." "You're insane," I typed. "Admit it, you love it," she replied with a winking emoji. I didn't even deny it. Honestly, I kind of did. A few days later, she asked me to deliver the oil to her house. I said sure because apparently I'd become a full-time delivery guy for the Queen of Pop. Her place wasn't as grand as I expected. It was clean, minimal, warm in a weirdly lonely way. "Surprised?" she asked. "I thought celebrities lived in palaces." "Why live in a palace when you come home to an empty bed?" she said, eyes drifting. I looked at her in her cozy sweats, hair tied up, skin glowing without makeup. She didn't look like the superstar on stage. She looked like a girl next door. A very dangerous, heart-melting, totally out of my league girl next door. "You hungry?" she asked suddenly. "You cook? You thought I survived on takeout?" 15 minutes later, I was sitting at her kitchen table with a home-cooked meal in front of me, my heart racing like I was at a second first date. "Do you have any requirements for a partner?" she asked. I shrugged. "Just someone nice, I guess." She tilted her head. "What do you think of me?" I choked on my soup. "You're amazing." "Then why don't we try it?" My spoon dropped. "Try what?" "Dating," she said calmly, looking me straight in the eyes. "You and me." I froze, completely out of words. Did she just ask me out? For real? My brain went offline for a full 3 seconds after she said it. "Why don't we have a relationship?" And in those 3 seconds, every file in my head labeled common sense, self-worth, and this can't be real just spontaneously combusted, leaving nothing but static, soup breath, and a stupid expression on my face. I stared at her like she just announced she was an alien here to marry me and take over Earth. "You're joking, right?" I finally managed to croak. Emily looked at me like I was the dumbest man alive, which, to be fair, I probably was. "James," she said, calm as ever, "do I look like I'm joking?" And that's when I realized she wasn't smiling, wasn't laughing, wasn't teasing. She meant it. I panicked. I mumbled something about how we weren't from the same world and how she was basically a goddess and I was just a peasant with graphic design skills and a roommate who talks to his pet turtle, and she just sighed dramatically, tossed a shrimp into my bowl, and said, "Because you're willing to spend money on me, idiot. That's why." I blinked. "You think that's proof of love?" "You gave me everything you had twice," she said, poking her chopsticks at me like it was a legal argument. "Nobody does that unless they're either terminally dumb or actually care. And since I don't think you're that dumb," I covered my face with my hand, trying not to laugh or die. "I didn't think. I just reacted." "Exactly," she said, triumphantly. "Your body moved before your brain. That's how you know it's real." I wanted to argue but okay, fine, she had a point. "Still," I mumbled, "you've got way better options than me. Hotter guys. Celebs. Famous actors. Do they deliver soybean oil to my apartment?" she deadpanned. "Nope. Do they eat my bad stir-fry and choke on soup mid-sentence?" "Definitely not." "Exactly," she said. "You're unique." "That's not always a good thing," I muttered, but she laughed and leaned across the table, pointing at the scar on my brow. "You got this for me, didn't you?" I blinked again. "Wait, what?" "Back in high school," she said. "You got in that fight because that guy said some disgusting crap about me. And I know you never told anyone. But I knew." My stomach dropped. I hadn't thought about that in years. I'd always assumed she never found out. But here she was, saying it out loud like it just happened. "And," she added, tapping her chin, "you stood outside with me that time when I got punished by Ms. Harper for forgetting my test paper. You brought yours but stood with me anyway, just to make me feel less embarrassed. You even slipped chocolate in my hoodie pocket. You remember that?" I asked, stunned. "Of course I do," she said, her voice suddenly softer. It was the first time anyone made me feel like I wasn't alone. I felt heat crawling up my neck and ears, but before I could reply, she leaned in again, eyes gleaming. "So now, remind me how we're not familiar with each other." Okay, I muttered, completely flustered. "Maybe we are." "Good," she said. "So let's not overthink it. You and me, we can figure it out." I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone started buzzing violently. "Mom." I picked up, and her voice blasted through like a foghorn. "James. Don't forget about your blind date this Sunday. Garden Bistro, 6 p.m. sharp. I froze, made eye contact with Emily, and mouthed, "My mom." She raised a brow. "Blind date, huh?" I nodded, mortified. "Well-behaved girl," Mom continued. "Teacher. 30. Steady job. Don't mess it up." I hung up mid-rant and gave Emily an apologetic smile. "Sorry. My mom's just persistent." She tilted her head, expression unreadable. "So. You're still going?" "I mean, I don't want to, but. It's already scheduled, and I didn't really know where we stood, and, got it," she said, standing up and gathering the dishes. "Enjoy your dinner." "Emily, it's fine," she cut me off. "Just a misunderstanding. We're not official yet, right?" I didn't answer, mostly because I didn't know how. Later that weekend, I found myself standing awkwardly outside Garden Bistro, staring through the window at a woman who, let's just say, didn't match her profile picture. At all. She looked solid-like, Michelin tire solid. No offense, but my first thought was that the restaurant chair might snap under pressure. "James," she called out, waving at me enthusiastically. "You're even cuter in person." I gulped. "Thanks. I don't mind that you're unemployed," she continued. "Let's get married if we vibe, yeah." I nearly choked on my water. "Excuse me." "No time to waste," she said. Ticking clock and all. That was my limit. I dropped a 20 on the table and mumbled, "You're great, but I'm not the guy for you." And I made a run for itemly to freeze at the sight of someone leaning on a black sports car just outside. Baseball cap, sunglasses, casual clothes, and that unmistakable smirk. "You done?" Emily asked, arms crossed. What are you doing here?" "Saving your life," she said. "Also, marking territory. That woman looked like she was going to eat you whole." "Jealous much?" I teased. She rolled her eyes and grabbed my collar. "You're making things hard for me, you know." And then, before I could ask what she meant, she tiptoed and kissed me right there in public. Not a peck. A full-blown, dizzying kiss that short-circuited my entire nervous system. My blind date inside the restaurant was probably having a meltdown. I panicked and pushed her away. "Emily, people might recognize you." "Good," she said, unfazed. "Let them." "You don't care." "About them?" she scoffed. "I care about you being mine. Officially. If that means going public, so be it." We sat in her car afterward, the air tense but electric. I scrolled through the latest trending post photos of her smiling at some young actor on a set. "You looked pretty cozy with Ryan Kim," I said, not looking at her. "Seriously?" she replied, deadpan. That was a cooking segment. I was drooling over food, not him. "You sure? Want me to prove it?" she asked, leaning close again. "Because I will." Okay, I muttered. "I believe you." "James," she said, voice lower now, "if you ever wonder about me, just ask. Don't assume. Don't spiral. Just talk to me." "Got it," I said, embarrassed. "Also," she added, "I'm not dating anyone else. Haven't been. Can't, actually. Part of my contract back then. 7 years of pretending to be single. I hated every second. That's why you never messaged me." "Yeah," she said, looking down. "And maybe because I was scared you'd forgotten about me." "I didn't," I said quietly. "Never did." "Good," she said, a smile tugging at her lips. "Because I didn't either." I leaned back in my seat, staring at the roof of her car. "So what are we now?" "We," she said, reaching for my hand, "are whatever you want us to be." I squeezed her fingers and said, "Then we're dating. Officially. Like, no blind dates kind of dating." "Good," she smiled. "Because I already cancelled all your future blind dates." "You what?" "I called your mom," she said casually. "Told her you had a girlfriend. Emily." You're welcome, she winked. And just like that, we were no longer two people orbiting. Memories were something real, something messy, something terrifyingly beautiful. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. You'd think that once you start dating the woman of your dreams who also happens to be a national pop icon, life would immediately turn into a fairy tale, right? Wrong. Turns out, dating a celebrity is just like dating a regular girl. If that girl had 1 million fans, zero privacy, a packed schedule, and could drop your name into the national trending list with one accidental Instagram live. The first week after we got together, she was out of town shooting some variety show, and even though we had just defined the relationship, we were immediately thrown into a long-distance limbo. She'd call when she could, usually during short breaks, whispering sweet things like, "I miss you," or, "Did you eat today?" But also weirdly cryptic things like, "Don't look at the news, okay?" Or, "No matter what they say, just wait for me." Of course, being the emotionally unstable overthinker I am, I ignored her advice and looked at the news anyway, and that's when I saw it: Emily Carter and Ryan Kim's secret romance. The article was filled with behind-the-scenes shots from the variety show set, and in one of them, she was laughing while looking up at Ryan Kim, who was cooking something in an apron. The headline screamed, "Her eyes are full of him." My stomach twisted. I knew I shouldn't believe everything online, but try telling that to my brain at 2 a.m. when I was doom-scrolling and already emotionally invested in being betrayed. I clicked open our old texts and started rereading everything, looking for signs, trying to analyze her emojis, her tone, whether her haha was sincere or polite. My mind went full high school lit class. Meanwhile, I started drafting a sad, melodramatic post for my private friend group that only had Nathan and like 2 other guys in it. I wrote, "So the story ends without a single photo. The girl I liked never looked back." Then I stared at it for 5 minutes, realized how pathetic it sounded, and deleted it. But the emo damage was done. I stayed up all night, tossing and turning, wondering if I had just been a fun little secret fling while she went back to the real, famous, six-pack having guys in her world. The next day, just as I was settling into full-on heartbreak mode, I got a text from my mom reminding me that I had a blind date scheduled at 6 p.m. that evening. Crap. I forgot she set me up with someone before Emily and I got official. I wanted to cancel, but something petty and insecure in me thought, she's out there smiling at Ryan Kim. Fine. Let's see how it feels on the other side. Spoiler alert, it didn't feel good. My blind date turned out to be intense. Her name was Rebecca, a 30-year-old kindergarten teacher who was built like a tank wearing a floral dress 2 sizes too small. The moment I sat down, she smiled and said, "You look even better in person. If we're compatible, how about getting married by Christmas?" My soul left my body. I tried to escape with polite excuses, but the moment I stood up, she stood up too and she followed me out of the restaurant. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I heard a familiar voice behind me say, "James Walker." I turned around, and there she was. Emily Carter. Dressed down in a hoodie, cap, and jeans, standing next to a black convertible like she'd just walked out of a rom-com. She wasn't smiling. She looked disappointed. Maybe even a little hurt. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Blind date," I muttered, suddenly feeling like the world's biggest jerk. She walked up to me, placed her hand on my cheek, and said in the quietest, deadliest voice, "You're really making this hard for me." Then she kissed me. Right there, in front of Rebecca, in front of the whole world if they were watching. I panicked and pulled away. "Emily, your face. No mask. Someone might recognize you." "Let them," she said coldly, then turned to Rebecca and added, "Sorry. He's taken." Rebecca's jaw dropped. "She looks like," "Yeah," I cut in. "She is." I practically dragged Emily into her car and shut the door before a scandal could erupt. Once inside, she sat silently, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. I tried to explain, but she interrupted me. "She looked like your mom." "Hey," I said defensively. "Older women can be nurturing." She turned her head slowly toward me. Are you calling me immature? What? No. I was digging my grave in real time. She started the car, eyes narrowed. You have a girlfriend, and you still go on a blind date? I threw my phone at her lap. You were flirting with Ryan Kim. She glanced down, saw the gossip post, and burst out laughing. That was a behind-the-scenes clip. He was frying chicken. I was looking at the drumsticks. Well, the internet thinks you were looking at him like he hung the stars. They also think I'm dating every co-star I've ever worked with, she said. It's all for hype, James. I haven't had a real relationship in years. Seriously? 7 years, she said, softer now. Contract terms. I wasn't allowed to date. Had to keep up a single image. That's why I never reached out. I didn't want to drag you into that mess. But now, she looked at me with those big, honest eyes, now I don't want to let go. You're not gonna, I said, reaching for her hand. I'm here. Good, she whispered, leaning her head on my shoulder. Also, I canceled the rest of your blind dates. Told your mom I was your girlfriend. You. What? You're welcome. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling trying to process the whiplash that was Emily Carter. She was ridiculous, dramatic, chaotic but also warm, loyal, and the most unexpectedly sincere person I'd ever met. The next few weeks blurred together. We didn't make any big announcements. No IG posts. No couple photos. She wanted to keep it just between us for now, and honestly, I didn't mind. But Nathan was losing his mind. So, he texted me one night. Did classmate G push Emily Carter yet? Bro, I replied. Can you stop asking me that every morning? No. I live vicariously through you. Then your life must be insane. It is. And I want juicy updates. So. Did she kiss you again? Did she hold your hand? Did you, good night? I threw my phone across the bed and tried not to think about how weirdly quiet things had gotten. Emily was filming again, traveling more. She'd send me random snacks and goofy selfies, but her replies got slower, her calls shorter. The insecure part of me started whispering again. What if she was getting bored? What if I was just a novelty? I shook it off, but one night, while scrolling TikTok, a new post popped up, Emily singing a new song live at a private industry event. It was stunning. She looked radiant, powerful. And suddenly, I felt like a ghost. Like she was on stage in front of everyone, and I was just some shadow in the background. The weirdest part? I started wondering if she ever really liked me at all. Or maybe I'd imagined everything. Maybe I was just a fool who happened to be at the right place when she needed a break. I opened our graduation photo. There she was, 18-year-old Emily Carter, standing behind me with that crooked smile, flashing a peace sign. I looked at my younger self in the photo and wondered if he would believe that someday, he'd be the guy she kissed in front of a restaurant. Probably not. Then I remembered what she said in the car. I don't want to let go. And for now, that had to be enough. Emily didn't reply to my goodnight text that evening, and even though I told myself not to overthink it, I still stared at my phone like it owed me an explanation, like somehow the number of minutes since her last message would change her feelings for me, as if love could be measured in read receipts and typing indicators, and the more I tried to distract myself, the more I spiraled, especially after my mom sent another text that somehow made everything worse. James, that teacher girl from your blind date was actually very interested. Should I pass along your number again? I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but instead I replied, no, Mom. I already have a girlfriend. And I think just sending that one sentence made me feel steadier, like I was anchoring myself back to something real instead of drowning in assumptions. That afternoon, Emily texted me out of nowhere, I left something at your building. Go downstairs. I ran down in slippers and found her leaning against her car, hair in a messy bun, wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big and no makeup, holding a bag of takeout and 2 milk teas like some rom-com fantasy version of herself. Hey, she smiled, and just like that, my brain rebooted. What are you doing here? I asked, breathless. You didn't respond last night. I fell asleep with a face mask on, she said with a sheepish grin. Didn't mean to ghost you. I thought you broke up with me via silence, I admitted. Nope, she said, handing me one of the milk teas. Still very much your girlfriend. We went upstairs and had dinner on the floor like broke college kids. She laughed when I burned my tongue on dumpling soup, and I laughed when she spilled sauce on her hoodie, and it felt stupidly simple and warm and normal. After we ate, she curled up next to me on the couch and whispered, you know, I've been thinking a lot lately. About what? About how weird it must be for you, she said, looking up at me. Dating someone like me. You mean gorgeous, talented, famous, and a little chaotic? I mean public, exposed, complicated, she said softly. You've had to hide everything. I can't even hold your hand in public without someone turning it into a headline. I don't care, I told her. I didn't fall for Emily Carter, the celebrity. I fell for Emily Carter, the girl who once borrowed $80 from me to chase her dreams and still remembered to pay me back 7 years later. She smiled and then grew quiet for a moment. You know I didn't talk to you after I won that talent show because my parents cut me off, right? I blinked. Wait, what? They didn't support my music thing. I had to choose between college and the show. I picked the show. They stopped sending money, and I had no backup plan. So when you lent me that money, James, it wasn't just a sweet gesture. You literally made it possible for me to even go. I swore if I ever made it big, I'd come back and make it up to you. But then the agency signed me to this insane 7-year contract. No dating, no scandals, full dedication to the career. And now? Now the contract's done, she said, locking eyes with me. And I'm done with the industry. Wait, what? I sat up straighter. Emily, you're huge. You just dropped a new song last month that broke like 5 charts. Why would you walk away now? Because I'm tired, she said, voice low. Tired of pretending. Tired of being a product. Tired of not being able to love who I want, when I want. I want a life that belongs to me again. I want to go grocery shopping with you and not care who's watching. I want to argue about which takeout place is better and go to the movies without makeup and post silly couple pics without worrying about PR. And you're willing to give up your whole career for that? I already did, she said, pulling something out of her pocket. It was a VIP concert ticket. My final show. I'm announcing my retirement on stage. My heart skipped a beat. You're serious. Dead serious, she said. And that last song? I wrote it about you. I was stunned. Speechless. For once in my life, I had no sarcastic comeback. Just this overwhelming feeling of gratitude and disbelief that the girl I used to avoid eye contact with in the hallway now wanted to build a future with me. A few days later, I went home for the weekend and tried to break the news gently to my parents. So. I'm dating someone, I said cautiously at dinner. My dad squinted over his glasses. Does she have a job? Technically, yes. She's a singer. What kind of singer? Like bar singer? Wedding gigs? She's Emily Carter. My mom nearly dropped her chopsticks. My dad snorted like I just told him I was marrying Beyoncé. Emily Carter. The pop star. Yup, I nodded. Been dating for a bit now. And you expect us to believe that? Dad asked. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to her latest selfie with me and the soybean oil she made me carry into her apartment, and showed it to them. That's Photoshop, Dad grumbled. It's real, Dad. How much is her dowry? Dad, you know our family's simple. We don't need a huge wedding. Just a little cash gift to show respect. She already gave me 800K, I muttered. What? Yeah. She paid me back the $80 I lent her in high school with interest. My dad stared at me like I'd lost my mind, then turned to my mom. We raised a fool who turned out lucky. A very lucky fool, I said, grinning. But as much as my parents were flustered, they didn't reject her. They were just overwhelmed, which was understandable. I mean, how do you process the fact that your son's girlfriend used to be on billboards and now eats ramen with him in pajamas? On the day of her final concert, the stadium was packed. Over 100,000 people screaming her name, chanting lyrics, holding up light sticks like they were praying to the goddess of music. And I sat front row, heart pounding like a drum, watching the girl I loved walk out in a white dress, bathed in gold lights, holding a mic like it was an extension of her soul. This next song, she said, voice steady but emotional, is for someone who changed my life with a small act of kindness. He gave me $80 when I had nothing. He believed in me before anyone else did. And tonight, I want the world to know this is my last concert. I'm retiring from the stage. Because I've found something better. I found love. The crowd gasped. My heart exploded. She looked straight at me and smiled, eyes shining with tears and joy. And in that moment, I knew everything was real. She wasn't just performing. She was choosing me. After the concert ended and the crowd slowly thinned out, I found myself backstage, still in a daze, trying to process everything that had just happened. Emily Carter, the woman who once stood at the very top of the entertainment industry, had just stepped away from it all in front of 100,000 people, with me sitting there like the accidental protagonist in some rom-com fanfiction come to life. And before I could even take a breath, she grabbed my hand and practically dragged me out of the venue, away from the screaming fans, the cameras, the interviews she refused to give, and the whirlwind that she used to call a life, and we ran like two high schoolers ditching class, laughing, breathless, exhausted, until she suddenly stopped in the middle of an empty road, right in front of our old school Lincoln High, where everything had started, where I used to sit in the front row while she sat in the back like royalty, never imagining the girl behind me would someday hold my hand and look at me like I was her whole world. And she turned to me, her face glowing under the streetlight, and asked softly, "James Walker, do you remember this place?" I nodded, speechless, because yeah, how could I forget? This was where she once changed her contact name in my phone to, the most beautiful girl in the world, right before she asked me to lend her $80, and it was where I used to lower my head every time we crossed paths, pretending not to see her even though she was the only person I noticed in every hallway. And now here we were again, older but not so different, and she reached into her pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and said, "I carried this around for weeks, but I was waiting for the right moment," and when she opened it, there it was, a diamond ring that sparkled under the faint yellow light, simple, elegant, not flashy at all, just like the love she had buried quietly for years. And then she looked at me, her voice shaking just a little. "7 years ago, I thought I lost you forever, but that day you transferred all your money to me without hesitation. I made up my mind, James, let's get married." And I stood there, completely frozen, because this wasn't just a proposal, this was a full circle moment, a confirmation that my high school crush, the silent love I thought had withered away with time, had actually been two-way all along. And I could feel my throat tighten, my chest ache in the best way possible, and I barely managed to whisper, "Yes," before slipping the ring onto her finger and watching her tear up with that same smile I remembered from our graduation photo. And as if the universe was orchestrating it all, I heard a soft melody drifting in from someone's open window nearby. It was her song, delivered on time, and in that moment, I wasn't just some background character in her story, I was the ending, the one she waited for, the one who showed up exactly when she needed me most. The next few weeks were surreal. News of Emily's retirement exploded everywhere, but just like she said, the entertainment world moved fast, and before long, the headlines faded, the hashtags died down, and people started obsessing over newer scandals, fresher idols, leaving us in peace, which was exactly what she wanted: quiet, normal, soft domestic chaos. I moved in with her, and even though her house still looked like a luxury showroom, we filled it with dumb things like mismatched mugs, thrift store throw blankets, and way too many jars of peanut butter because neither of us remembered we already had some. She still had fans, of course, and I still felt a little weird when strangers recognized her at the supermarket, but most days were just us, arguing over what show to binge or whether pineapple belonged on pizza, and I loved it. But of course, peace doesn't last forever. One morning, she picked up my phone while I was in the shower just to check the weather. She claimed and ended up seeing a ridiculous meme Nathan sent me, one that said, "Did classmate James finally push Emily Carter down today?" Followed by a bunch of cursed emojis and a TikTok link. Her silence was deafening when I walked out. Babe? What is this?" she asked, showing me the message. "It's Nathan. You know he's insane. And what's this comment you left under some thirst trap video on Instagram? This is the 108th girl I've fallen in love with today. That was before we were together." I protested. "It's a joke. Just algorithm bait." "So I'm 109, she said, eyebrow raised. "No. You're like the final boss. The endgame. The epilogue and the sequel." She stared at me for a long second, then said in the calmest, most dangerous tone ever, "If I had known you were this thirsty, I wouldn't have waited so long." "Wait, what?" "Don't worry," she said sweetly, stepping closer. "We can fix that." And just like that, she dragged me to the bedroom, whispering something about satisfying reality over imagination, and let's just say Nathan didn't get any more updates for the next 2 days. Later, when I went home to visit my extended family, I brought Emily with me. My little cousin surrounded her like she was Elsa from Frozen and begged her to sing, "The Lone Brave Man," and she actually sat down on a tiny stool in our cramped living room, hands in her hoodie pockets, singing softly while my aunt recorded the whole thing and sobbed in the background like it was her own wedding. When we got back in the car, she groaned, "I'll never live that down, will I?" And I replied, "Nope, but you looked adorable." But the moment that really stuck with me came a week later, when we were walking in the park and she stopped by the fountain, stared at it for a while, and said, "You know what still haunts me?" "What?" I asked, slipping my hand into hers. "The time in high school when I asked you for your number and saw you'd saved me as just Lou Ryan. I was so mad I changed it myself." "You changed it to the most beautiful girl in the world, remember?" I said with a laugh. "That's how you ended up being the first name in my contacts list." "Exactly," she said, grinning. "Which is why I texted you during that anti-fraud show. Because deep down, I wanted it to be you who answered." "And you did." "Yeah," I said. "With all my money. Best investment I ever received," she smiled. "Return on investment, one husband. Still not legally married yet," I teased. "Just wait," she whispered. "I've got a surprise." The surprise came a week later when I got a notification from her, "Check your email." I opened it and found a PDF of wedding venue bookings, a list of dates, and a handwritten message at the bottom scanned in, "Pick any date. I'll show up in white." That night, I looked at her sleeping beside me, hair a mess, one arm draped over my chest, breathing softly like the world had finally given her rest, and I thought, yeah, this is it. This is what it feels like to love and be loved back. 7 years of silence, one foolish wire transfer, a few barrels of soybean oil, and now this. Who would have thought that the girl who once sat behind me in homeroom, scribbling lyrics in the margins of her notebook, would someday be the person who made me believe in the kind of love that doesn't just stay, it grows, it waits, and when the timing is right, it blooms exactly on time.